Shabbat Shalom. On October 15th, 2023, 8 days after the horrific and unimaginable events of October 7th, I boarded an El Al plane carrying 6 large duffel bags and 4 boxes of essential supplies for IDF soldiers, purchased and packed by the loving hands of this community, to bring to friends from my unit who had been called up to serve in reserves, to other units in need of essential supplies. And since then, we all know that we have continued to pray every day for our brothers and sisters in Israel. And we have turned our prayers into action as our community continued to pack supplies, send cards of support, purchase 2 Magen David Adom ambulances through friends of the IDF, one of which we were informed helped to return our family members held hostage during the first ceasefire. Rabbi Guzik traveled to Israel with the rabbinic delegation through the Los Angeles Board of Rabbis. Last summer, Rabbi Sherman took a group of on a volunteer mission with JNF USA. Since returning from Israel in October of 23, I have dreamed of returning to Israel. And on the eve of Saturday, January 25th, Motzei Shabbat, 2 weeks ago, thanks to the continued urging of Ariel Newman, a close friend, the Sinai Akiba Academy father, 11 of us Sinai dads departed for Israel on a mission we will never forget, a journey that I believe has changed our lives forever, that has bound us together as brothers, a mission that has taught us about the importance of showing up, putting our feet on the ground, of presence, of giving from the depths of our hearts, and reminding ourselves and our brothers and sisters in Israel that they are not alone. Our mission was simple: to remind everyone there that kulanu am echad. We are all one people. The great Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai, in his poem Tourists, writes about a moment where he is simply sitting at the gate of David's Tower in Jerusalem, watching tourists gather around their guide. He, a man with 2 heavy baskets, becomes just a part of the scenery as they look at the arch above his head. In this moment, Amichai shares a deep truth. It's not just our shared history that binds us together, but our connections to one another, our humanity. He writes, "You see that man with the baskets? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head, explaining what the guide was explaining to the tourists. But he's moving," Amichai said. "He's moving." I said to myself, redemption will come only if their guide tells them, "You see that arch from the Roman period? It's important, but it's not as important. Because see, next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruits and vegetables for his family." Amichai reminds us that more than our shared history, it's our connection to each other that binds us together, that unites us as a people. And so today, rather than focus solely on the sights we saw, I will share about some of the people we met, the connections we made, the people who touched our hearts, and whose hearts were hopefully touched by all of us. I'm going to ask you to stay with me because I'm going to go through this very quickly, and I'm barely going to scratch the surface. Sinai, Eliyahu, and Shlomi Ziv. On Monday morning, we loaded the bus for our first day of volunteering, bearing witness, and sharing love with our brothers and sisters in Israel, and we were joined by Sinai, Eliyahu, and Shlomi Ziv. Sinai, father of Aviv Eliyahu, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing, who was head of security at the Nova Festival, who saved countless lives fighting against Hamas terrorists. And Shlomi, also a member of the security team, who was taken hostage on the 7th, you may remember, was rescued by the IDF in Operation Arnon. While at the Nova site, Shlomi shared his first-person account of what happened on October 7th. We learned of his incredible strength and his resilience, his love of our people and of our homeland. Sinai taught us about the incredible bravery of his son Aviv, how in the heat of battle, his son Aviv stayed calm, guiding people to safety, knowing that Hamas was to the north and to the south. He urged Nova partygoers to go east in the direction of the sun. As we stood together with Sinai and Shlomi in the exact spot where Aviv courageously battled Hamas terrorists, Sinai shared with us that when they gathered in the same spot to dedicate a monument in Aviv's memory, many Nova survivors whom Aviv had saved joined them to pay their respects. The monument originally stated in memory of Aviv Eliyahu, hero of Israel who saved hundreds. As the ceremony concluded, Nova survivors approached Sinai and said, "Listen, ata lo mevin, you don't understand. Aviv didn't save hundreds. He saved thousands. Thousands of lives. Everyone whom Aviv told to go towards the sun, lechu el hashemesh, survived." May Aviv's memory be for a blessing always. Shlomo, Margalit, and Iso from Kibbutz Nir Oz. On the Gaza envelope, as we arrived at Kibbutz Nir Oz, we were greeted by Shlomo, grandfather of Lior, a 15-year-old boy who had been part of the delegation of basketball players. You may remember we hosted this delegation from the Eshkol region right here at Sinai Temple. From the Gaza envelope, who were just with us. Shlomo, a founding member of Kibbutz Nir Oz, was also joined by Iso, another member of the basketball team, a 15-year-old boy. Iso stayed with me and my family. When he was here in Los Angeles, he has become a ben bayit, as we call it, like a son to us. And Iso has experienced more pain and heartache than any 15-year-old should have in their lifetime, than anyone in their lifetime should have to endure. On October 7th, Iso's grandfather, Eliyahu Margalit, was taken hostage, was killed. His aunt Neely was taken hostage. Thank God returned during the first hostage release and ceasefire. His cousin Dolev Yehud, also murdered. And just last week, while we were in Israel, Iso's cousin Arbel Yehud, after 482 days of brutal captivity, was released by Hamas and returned safely to her family. Shlomo and Iso walked with us through Nir Oz, where one in four members of the kibbutz were either taken hostage or murdered. We gathered in front of the home of Amiram Cooper, uncle of Sinai member Rona Passman, who was taken hostage and also murdered in captivity, where we said the El Maleh memorial prayer in Kaddish for Amiram, for Eliyahu Margalit, Iso's grandfather, for Dolev, Iso's cousin, and all the members of Nir Oz whose lives have been taken from them. We witnessed firsthand Iso's strength and resilience as he showed us where he hid for so many hours during the attack. And we admired the incredible spirit of Shlomo, who lost so many friends that day, including Amiram and Eliyahu, and who at 87 years of age spoke passionately of rebuilding, along with Gadi Moses, who would be released later that week. Gadi, too, upon his release, stated, "We will rebuild Nir Oz." Wounded IDF soldiers at Tel HaShomer Hospital in Tel Aviv. We arrived at Tel HaShomer a little after 1 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28th, and immediately unloaded 130 care packages gifted by members of our community, purchased in Israel to support the Israeli economy, each one with cards of support and friendship bracelets made by our Sinai Akiba Academy students and community members, and began going from room to room, delivering the packages and sharing love and blessings for health and healing, doing our best to lift the spirits of each soldier who fought valiantly for our country, for our people, for us. Our final visit was in the head and brain trauma division. We surrounded our brother, the soldier whose mom told us that he has already fought one battle, and now he battles every day for his life. As we showed him a video of our SAA students singing the prayer for the state of Israel and our IDF soldiers, his eye turned towards us, and his mom yelled out, "Tiru ech hu mitrakez." Look, he's paying attention. A first glimmer of hope in the face of his injury. In that moment, we held on to each other. We held on to his family and to him, and we prayed for his full recovery. Ro'i Chaim ben Meirav, please join us in praying for his recovery. David, who grew up at Beth Am right here in Los Angeles, Tzipi from Zichron Yaakov, Alex, a Russian immigrant from Kibbutz Sdot Yam near Caesarea. Throughout the trip, I encouraged the guys to just talk to people, to listen, to hear the stories, because even in what might seem like the most mundane of activities, wine tasting in the north, a connection can be formed. Wednesday morning at breakfast, we were joined by David, originally from Los Angeles. David went to Israel on a gap year program when he was 18 years old, served in the elite reconnaissance unit of the paratroopers, and married his counselor from the program, decided to raise their family on the kibbutz she grew up on, Kibbutz Saad, in the Gaza envelope. On October 7th, David and his wife and children were in their safe room for hours. For some reason, Hamas didn't attack Saad that day. Some say it was a miracle, but David can't believe that in his mind. He can't reconcile why he and his community would be the recipients of a miracle when his neighbors on both sides were not so lucky. October 8th, David and his wife took their children up north to stay with his wife's sister. David then kissed them goodbye and joined his unit, where he would serve over 280 days fighting in Gaza. I told David he was a superhero. He refused to see it that way. David said, "I'm not the hero. I and my friends have trained and prepared for this moment day in and day out, but it's my wife, it's our kids, it's all of our spouses and kids, those fighting who are the heroes. They had no preparation. Nothing prepared them to live without us all these days, not knowing if we would ever come home." Later that day, as we toured the Tishbe winery outside Zichron Yaakov, spoke with two incredible people who would later share their stories with the whole group. Sinai member and mission participant Michael Auerbach, his cousin Tzipi, whose family originally arrived in Israel in 1882, has owned and operated the Tishbe winery for generations, shared her story, which began on October 8th as well. and continues to this day. Tzipi shared how she and her friends have been cooking homemade meals each week for reservists in the area. She shared how, of course, these soldiers have food provided by the army, but there is nothing like a home-cooked meal. Tzipi continued to tell us about how they bake challah and other Shabbat food items for each and every kid of theirs from Zichron Yaakov, currently serving, with people from the community delivering the food every Friday all over the country. And if this wasn't enough, you may find it hard to believe that Tzipi and her community took in over 2,000 refugee families, displaced families from the north, who, according to Tzipi, arrived just in their underwear with absolutely nothing. They clothed them, took them into their homes and schools, and helped them to feel cared for and loved. As we were leaving, we spoke to Alex, a 46-year-old man originally from Russia who made Aliyah years ago. On October 8th, he received his orders to report to reserve duty. He immediately went to tell his wife, who subsequently went into cardiac arrest. Alex rushed her to the hospital where she would stay to recover for a few days. He took her home, made sure she had appropriate care, and left to defend our country. Alex spent 250 days in reserves. Alex, after having overheard Tzipi's story and sharing his own, remarked, "Ein kmo am Yisrael." There is nothing like the people of Israel. There is truly no one like our people. During the war, the band Hatikva 6 released a song that became an instant hit. They called it Giborei Al, superheroes. If you haven't heard it, I encourage you to find it. Spotify. Here's an excerpt. The Bible teacher serves in the infantry brigade, the language teacher in intelligence, the neighbor upstairs works in construction, but has already been in the reserves for a month. The lawyer is an operations manager, her brother a senior high-tech guy. Now he is a sniper on a rooftop in the Gaza Strip. We're a nation of superheroes, ready to save the world. And it doesn't matter if we are in the middle of living life or in the middle of a soccer game. Everyone will drop everything in a second if the flag calls out to them. This is our story, the nation of Israel. The spirit of our people is not new. Today, as we read in Parashat Beshalach, we recounted the story of our ancestors' escape from Egypt when they faced a sea that seemed insurmountable, only to have it part through Moses' outreached hands. But the rabbis of our tradition expand this story to highlight the courage of a man named Nachshon ben Aminadav. You may have heard this story. The first person to step into the waters when the miracle didn't happen immediately. It was his act of faith and courage that caused the sea to split. The story of Nachshon teaches us that freedom requires not just divine intervention, but human courage. We are called to act in the face of uncertainty, to carve a path forward for ourselves, for our families, for our community, for our people, and for those who come after us. But here's the difference. The difference between Nachshon's time and ours is that instead of one person stepping forward, there have been hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people like the people I've shared about today, ordinary people who have taken extraordinary action. Whether it's fighting for our people and our homeland, delivering meals, taking care of neighbors, or standing tall in the face of adversity, we are all called to be a part of the solution. Anachnu am shel giborei Yisrael. Anachnu am shel giborei al. We are a part of a nation of superheroes. As we continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Israel, let us also remember the call to act, whether through small acts of kindness, acts of courage, or standing together in solidarity like Nachshon and all those we've mentioned today. We must take those first steps, and together we will carve a path to a better future. Kulanu am echad. We are all one people. Am Yisrael Chai. May the people of Israel live forever. Shabbat Shalom.